Okay, welcome. It's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee. Today we're going to try a new type of fabric. Now this is kind of crimpling and it's like pleated. It's pleated. Now I'm sure you've seen it in the shops before. What we need to do is we need to sew it so that we keep the pleats in the waistband. And this one luckily has a sewn selvage, so we're going to use that sewn selvage as the bottom of our garment. Now standard length sold of this type of fabric is 60 centimetres, so that's great. That means I can do one 3/4 length skirt, saving the selvage, and then I can do a short skirt. Now what I plan to do is I plan to make the long skirt with no petticoat, but I will be sewing in a petticoat for the second one. Okay, what I need to do now is I need to measure the fabric, and what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and get this fabric so that we've got as much pleats in it as possible, which is easy enough, isn't it, in theory? Now, also out of this fabric, I need to sew a waistband. And I'm going to do that by cutting a long strip along the outside of the fabric. So, now I could have cut this off whilst I wasn't on the camera, but no, I'm not going to. So, I'm going to find a pleat and I'm going to cut along the pleat. Now you can see it's very see-through, and it's not so see-through when you actually have got it pleated together. Now one thing that we're going to need to do whilst we sew this is we're going to need to put some ribbon so that we can hang it up, a ribbon in the waistband, and we'll just sew that in when the time comes. Now what I would like to do is I would like to... Alright, okay, I'm going to stop the camera now and then I'm going to cut it out and then I'm all ready to go. Lovely. Okay, so I have all my fabric cut out now, and what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to decide what side is the right side and what side is the wrong side, because it's quite hard to tell because we've got this pleated selvage, so they're no different except for there is a pleated selvage side. Now I've also cut out my waistband, which is easy enough. It's just a strip of fabric. So I've got them right side sticking out, so the wrong side inside. Now the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to sew a French seam. So I'm going to take my fabric, place it underneath the machine. Now if it's the first time you've sewn this fabric, a great idea would be to have a little test sew on a scrap of fabric. Now all I'm doing is I'm trying to keep it as straight as possible, and as you know, it's just netting really. And then I'm sewing up. And what I'm going to do is when I get to the top, I'm going to turn it inside out and then I'm going to sew this seam in. Now I'm using the side that the shop cut. I know, and it's appalling. So I can see it, it's been hacked out by small children. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim it before I resew it. And this means I'll get that layer of fabric as thin as possible. Okay, a couple of reverse stitches. And pull that down. And then I can just trim that. One thing that I would watch for is that we don't pucker it. You can see it's slightly gathered there. But what we do is we don't finish off the ends, and then we just give it a good stretch through our thumb and our forefingers. But to do this seam, It's easy enough. Okay, so I'm going to trim away and then I'm going to fold it over and do the next layer. Lovely, so I believe I'm recording again. I really hope so. Anyway, I'm just coming up to the top here and I have literally, all I've done is sewn in that seam. So easy enough. Oh, getting a bit excited there. And a couple of reverse stitches. Now as you can see, I've got my machine on a nice loose stitch and I'm quite happy to sew this. It's not causing a problem at all. I would suggest that you use a sharp needle, a new needle, and that you go for the smallest needle in the multi-pack. So those of us that buy size 11, then we're fine. If you do buy the multi-packs, then we one of the smaller ones. Okay, so we're getting there. We're getting there. I have my seam and I'm going to start, so I've got the seam at the back, I've got my waistband, and what I want to do is I want to sew my waistband on just one side and then I'm going to flop it over and then sew it on the other side. So I'm going to straighten it out and I'm folding it in half now so that the other side has this neat edge, so we've got the fold on the other side. Okay, now if you have got some fabric that looks similar, then you could use that, that's fine. Okay, so right side down so I can see the seam here, so I'm on the back of the garment. This is just so that I've got one layer of stitches on the front. Now what I need to do is I need to sew it so that the pleats are still in, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to mark halfway, I'm not with a pin, so that it's I know that I'm not overstretching it. Okay, so, and also I've got the pleats folded like that, so the machine should push them flat as well. Alright, let's go. It's obviously really thick knitting. Okay, every couple of steps I'm going to check that I still have this lovely waistband folded. Now it's in the fabric's nature to ping back out, so I do have to keep an eye on it. And of course what I can do is I can fold it as well. So with my lower hand, all I'm doing is re-crimping the fabric, and with my upper hand I am controlling the fold of the waistband. So I know it's a bit left hand right hand, isn't it, but that's fine. Okay, making sure that I meet in the middle. And when I come to the middle, I'm going to get rid of that pin. I don't need it now, it was just a guide. Straighten out my waistband, and you can see that it's sort of naturally flopping, and then all I have to do is push it back up again. Now you can see also that I'm got a bit extra on the top. If I do feel like I've got too much extra on the top, I can then just trim that off, as long as I don't do too much. Alrighty, so a bit more adjusting, a bit more pushing the pleats back together, because it's only gravity that's knocking them out. Okay, what I want to do is at the end, I want all my crimply stuff to used up, and I want my waistband to meet. So that makes sense, doesn't it? Now I suppose the other way to do it is to tack all this, and I just think that would be making quite a large job. Alright, I'm back to the beginning. Okay, just going to pull my thread through. Now I'm going to turn the whole garment inside out, even though I only really need to worry about the top, but I just think it makes life easier. So I'm now going to take this fold of this waistband, I'm going to ignore the ends for now, and I'm going to place it over the fold there. So whereas before I needed to push my crimples back together, I don't really need to worry about that so much because I just don't. Now, if I was making this myself, I will have already sewn the elastic in. So it's entirely up to you. I'll show you what I do normally, just because I think it's 100% easier. Excuse me whilst I die quietly. There we go. So you can sew the elastic in now, or you can wait and push it through afterwards. It just depends what you're happy doing. I thoroughly recommend a knitting needle. And in a way, the elastic being there helps because it helps with the spacing of the waistband. So let's see if I can push it through for this bit so that we can get started. And I don't know if I'll be able to. Right, I'll start it halfway along. Yeah, we don't need to know. Okay, so there we go. I now have placed my elastic underneath my waistband, and I am pulling my fold over, tucking in all my wafy bits, and then just sewing. I'm allowing the machine to sort out the crimpling and the crinkles. Although technically I am pushing them because I don't want them to bunch. But it is just a case of, well, you know, you bought a sewing machine, let it sew. One thing I don't want to do is pull it up too much from the back. I don't know if you can see that, but if I carried on going along that line, we'd have quite a large clump. And I don't want that. And these flaky bits can just be pushed in. So, around I go. Quite boring, really, nothing to see here. Just make sure every few inches adjust everything. Yeah, mainly I'm saying, if you see a new fabric and you want to try it, well, do try it. You know, most shops, the assistants will help you and they'll discuss the best way of handling it. So we've just come to the end here. And at this point I would adjust my elastic. And then, because we've cut a strip from the bottom, get this out so you can see it. This part here, this end of the waistband, is actually the selvage that we had earlier. So I will literally just trim this off. I would adjust the waistband elastic so that I knew it was comfortable. And then I would take this part of the waistband and I would just place it under there so that the selvage is the area showing. If I had a big darning needle or something like that, then I could literally just push all the flaky bits in. I could either hand sew that, those 4 or 5 stitches there, or I could just whiz straight under the machine. So it really depends. You could get away with it, you really could. Alright. Lovely. So what we're left with is a very simple, very easy to wear, would require a petticoat skirt. Alright, thank you ever so much for watching. My name's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee.